Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to your math lesson for today. For today, you will need your 5B workbook, your 5B textbook, paper, and a pencil. If you need to pause and go get those things, please do so, and then come on back and join me. So on Tuesday, we practiced a new kind of word problem, sort of new, and I told you that in the future, you'd have a chance to try it on your own. So today is in the future, and you're going to get a chance to try it on your own. So take a look. I'll read it to you, and then I'll have you pause, solve, and then come back and see how you did. So, Emilio was paid $500. He saved $300 and spent the rest on food and bills. His bills cost $130. How much less did his food cost? Go ahead and pause and solve, and then come on back and see how you did. So of course, fifth graders, you're not underlining because you don't have a question to underline, but you should have that answer statement. So his food, sorry, my head is totally in the way, cost blank dollars less. And again, we have that not exclamation, capitalization to really emphasize we're not asking how much was his food, we're asking how much less was his food. Remember, we talked about having 3 unit bars for this. So we have his savings, we have his bills, and we have his food. Now we take it a sentence at a time. We're told he was paid $500. So that's our total amount here. Okay, it should be all on the outside. He saved $300, spent the rest on food and bills. His bills were $130, and then this amount was food. We don't know how much the food was. We do need to figure that out, but that's also not the question. The question is how much less did his food cost? So we need to be finding the difference between his bills and his food. Now, in order to solve this problem, we have to find out the number or the amount that he spent on food. But that's not where we're going to stop, okay? So remember, we've talked about this. We worked on this yesterday. We want to add these two, so 300 and 130. That's 430. So now, totaling those at 430, we want to subtract 430 from our total, okay? Which gets us 70. That is what his food costs, but that is not the answer to the problem, okay? Because again, we're trying to find how much less. So now we can subtract 130 minus 70 to get our answer, which is $60. How'd we do, fifth graders? Again, I keep saying this, but this is a good time to say, did that go okay? Great. Did it not? Then come see us during office hours. We can do more practice problems of these types of problems. All right, so fifth graders, we've been working with decimals, and you'll remember yesterday we worked on adding and subtracting decimals, and we kept in mind this idea that when we're adding and subtracting decimals, there's kind of one big rule, right? We have to line up the decimal points. And we talked a lot about needing to use our virtues, prudently, temperately doing our math so that we're keeping things lined up nice and neat, okay? Today, our objective is going to be multiplying and dividing decimals by 1-digit numbers. And so that rule is going to sort of apply. For multiplication, we don't have to worry about lining up those decimals. It kind of comes out in the end for our last step. For division, though, we want to make sure we are doing some lining up of decimals, and I'll explain that to you as we get into our division problems. So we're going to jump right into our textbooks, fifth graders, and we're going to be looking at page 19 in your textbook. So if you need to go get yourself opened up to that, do so, and I'm going to flip you around, and we're going to jump right into today's work. And of course, remember, your job is to be working along with me, not just watching what I'm doing, but doing what I'm doing, okay? Okay, so we're gonna take a look, see again today that this idea of estimating continues to come up as we're working on these problems. And again, it helps us as we're getting to the end of the problem, it helps us to have an estimate so we can see, how did I do? Did I do it, place my decimal point correctly, or do I have an error here, okay? So to get us started on number 1, where we're going to be looking at multiplication of a decimal. The first thing we want to do is estimate our answer. And as with yesterday, I keep saying yesterday, but I guess I mean Tuesday. As with Tuesday, make it simple for you. Don't make it complicated. So round this to 2 and just do 2 times 3. So our estimate here is 6. So that means when we get to the end, we can compare our actual answer and see, did this turn out okay? Are we pretty close? Does my place value seem to be in the right place? So now we go ahead and find the value. I mentioned this in my introduction that we don't need to worry about lining up decimal points for multiplication, okay? We don't need to worry about that. We just multiply it. I say put the longer, meaning the number that has more digits, put that on top because that's a little bit simpler, okay? But don't worry about lining things up. Now we just do our multiplication as usual. 3 times 8 is 24, okay? 3 times 0 is 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6, okay? So I'm going to show you how your estimate helps, and I'm also going to give you a rule once we get to this point. Okay, so now at this step, we can kind of look and say, my estimate tells me that this answer should be about 6. So as I'm thinking about where to put my decimal point, this seems to be the place to put it. So it's about 6. Okay, so there's how our estimate helps. But also, as we look at this problem, we can go and look at how many decimal places are there in this problem. I see 1, 2. So 1, 2, and put my decimal point. Okay, so that's the rule that we can apply with our multiplication, but also we can see how this estimate would help us as well. So now we're going to take a look at division. And again, we're going to estimate and then also go ahead and find the value. So remember, when we're estimating with division, we need to make sure that we are prudently rounding our dividend in order to get a nice even number. So I would focus on these 2 digits and think, what can I round those to that I know is going to be evenly divisible by 5? So I can round that to 35. Now it's not 35, right? It's 3 5/10, but we can build off of that. So 35 divided by 5 would be 7, but 3 5/10 is going to be 7/10. So that's where we're at here. We're at about 7/10 for our estimate. And so now we go back and we do our division. And I mentioned at the beginning here that we want to make sure that our decimal points are lined up. And so yes, that means writing prudently, temperately, making sure to have our nice, neat handwriting so that we can see here is our decimal point and our dividend, and here it is in our quotient. They should line up with one another, okay? From there, we can kind of just do our division as usual. So how many times does 5 go into 3? 0 times. How many times does it go into 36? The answer is 7. 7 times 5 is 35. And we subtract and get our remainder of 1. And bring down our 1. How many times does 5 go into 11? 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Remainder of 1. And so now, 5th graders, we're going to take it a step further. As we're doing our division, remember with decimals, we can add zeros at the end without changing the value, right? As we add zeros after a decimal, it won't change the overall value of the number. So we're going to add a 0 and then bring that down. Sometimes the problems will say go to the second decimal place, but in this case, we're continuing until the end. And so 5 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 10 is 10, and we have a remainder of 0. So our exact answer here is 722 thousandths, and we refer to our estimate and say, yeah, that works. I think our decimal point is in the right place. And again, this is our fail-safe at the end to help us out and figure out if we've placed our decimal point incorrectly. So let's keep practicing, 5th graders. We see, again, for number 3, we're being asked to estimate and find the value. So we'll do, as usual, a few together, and then I'm going to ask you to do a few on your own. So when we're rounding for our estimate, we want to keep it simple, make it easy. So I'm going to round this to a 5. So 5 times 3, my estimate is 15. Now we copy the problem down, Remember, with multiplication, we don't need to line up our decimal points. We just do that multiplication. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 24, so the 4 goes here, and we carry our 2. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. So now, again, remember, our estimate tells us that our answer should be about 15. That gives us a clue about where our decimal point could go. But also, remember, I see 1, 2 decimal places in the problem. So 1, 2 in our answer. We get 14 and 46 hundredths. Let's try B. Again, rounding to make your life simple. So I would round this to 4, and 4 times 6 is 24. So our estimate for this problem is 24. So now we rewrite the problem. Again, we do not need to line up our decimal points for multiplication, and then we just carry out our multiplication rules as usual. 6 times 3 is 18, carry that 1. 6 times 6 is 36, plus 1 is 7, carry that 3. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. So again, our estimate of 24 gives us a great hint about where to put our decimal point. Or we look at our rule. 1, 2 decimal places in the problem. 1, 2 decimal places in the answer. Fifth graders, go ahead and pause. Try C on your own. Come on back and see how you did. Hopefully you remembered to start with your estimate. I would just do 9 times 40 here. Keep it simple, 9 times 40. So 9 times 4 is 36, which means 9 times 40, 360. So our answer is going to be about 360. Now we copy the problem, and hopefully you remembered what I said as well. It's a lot simpler to put the longer number on top. The longer meaning the one that has more digits. Put that on top. Then we do our multiplication. 9 times 5 is 45. Carry that 4. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 4 is 22. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 2 is 29. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 2 is 38. Again, we take a look, gives us a hint, or we say 1, 2, 1, 2, put our decimal point. So you might be saying, well, these aren't that close, and that's going to be true. With decimals, sometimes the answers are going to be kind of like, this is 30 ones away. But again, the idea is that we know that this is supposed to be 3 hundredths, not 3 ones, not 3 tens, not 3 thousands, right? This is the hint. It gives us really what is the place value supposed to be for this first digit. It's supposed to be hundredths. Okay, so that's something to think about as you're estimating for your multiplication. Okay, let's do some division. Again, we'll do a couple together, and you'll do a couple, well, one on your own. So again, we're looking at how do I round this prudently to make a nice even answer. So we're dividing by 3. I look at these two and I say, what do I round that to that's going to be evenly divisible by 3? So hopefully you're thinking 21, 21. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. That gives us a gauge for where our answer should be at. Now we copy the problem. Nice and neatly, and remember, go ahead and put that decimal point there right off the bat. It helps us to remember where it should be in our answer. Now we can go a step at a time. 3 goes into 22, or sorry, 2, no times. Into 22, it goes in 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. We subtract. Our remainder is 1, and we bring down our 1. 3 goes into 11 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. We subtract and get a remainder of 2. We bring down our 1. 3 goes into 21 7 times. And there's no remainder. And so now we compare. Our estimate was 7. Our answer is 7 and 37 hundredths. That seems to line up great, right? That's what we'd want to see. All right, let's try E. This one's going to be a little trickier for our estimate. More like the sample problem we did. So we're dividing by 7. So we want to look at these first 2 digits here. What can I round those to that's going to be evenly divisible by 7? So we're going to round this to 4 and 9 tenths, because I know I can divide 49 by 7. Now remember, 49 divided by 7, that's 7. But we're doing 4 and 9 tenths. So we need to make sure we're keeping track of that place value. So this is 7/10, right? So we see it's lining up there. Okay, now we copy our problem. Nice and neat, and we put our decimal point in right off the bat. How many times does 7 go into 5? It goes in 0 times. And so when it's before the decimal point, we want to have a 0. The proper way, right, is to have a 0, have a digit before our decimal point. And if there's no non-zero, then we put 0 in. How many times does 7 go into 50? 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract with our remainder of 1. We bring down our 4. 14. I like what I'm seeing. How many times does 7 go into 14? It goes in 2 times without a remainder. And we compare. And I feel really good. Our estimate and our answer, our quotient here, very close. All right, it's that time, fifth graders. You're going to pause. You're going to try F on your own. You're going to come back and see how you did. All right, 27 and 8/100ths divided by 4. So again, we want to do a nice prudent estimate. So what are we going to round 27 to? That's going to be divisible by 4. I would recommend rounding it to 28 because 28 divided by 4 is 7. So that tells us our answer should be somewhere around 7. So now we copy down our answer and immediately put our decimal point in place. 4 does not go into 2. It goes into 27. It only goes in 6 times though. So 6 times 4 is 24, and we get that remainder of 3 and bring down our 0. How many times does 4 go into 30? It goes in 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28 with a remainder of 2. Again, I'm liking what I'm seeing. 4 goes into 28 7 times. Okay, and I say I'm liking what I'm seeing because, of course, it's always a little bit more pleasing when our quotient comes out evenly at the end. That's not always going to happen, though, fifth graders. Sometimes you're going to be told to round your answer or to solve to a certain decimal place. Okay, so I don't want you to think that it's always going to be that way, but for starters, we can kind of assume that it'll be that way. And we compare 6.77, 6 and 77/100ths. That's pretty close to 7, right? That's a great estimate. So that can help us to feel pretty confident about the work that we did. All right, fifth graders. So kind of to recap, right? Yesterday we talked about addition and subtraction. Our decimal point needs to line up. Multiplication, it doesn't. We simply want to put our longest number, meaning the number with the most digits, on top, okay? For division, we want to make sure that our dividend and our quotient, we want to make sure that there's that lined, nice, neat, lined up answer with the decimal point lined up, okay? So I started saying this on Tuesday, but I forgot that this was today's homework. So for today's homework and practice, you're going to complete all of page 9 in your workbook. That's the whole thing, okay? That is your practice and that is your homework all together, okay? I have a key for A, B, and C and G, H, and I. So those 6 are going to be your practice problems. And the homework will be the rest of it, D, E, F, J, K, L, okay? So this whole page is going to be your homework and your practice, and then it's important to note, yes, estimate first and then find the value. You should have both of those pieces, and we'll ask you to go back and add one or the other if you only have one. You need to have both parts of it, okay? So we've got a couple checkpoints. We did some practice problems together. You've got some practice with a key that you can work on here. Those checkpoints are your cue to get help during office hours if you're struggling, right? Then we can kind of work through and kind of tweak some of those things. So come see us if you're struggling at any of these checkpoints. And then when you're done, when you feel confident, go ahead and submit that homework with a picture for us to see. So good luck. And we're here. Reach out if you need it.